All right, guys, episode 38, TJ Martino podcast. Happy to be here. This should be a decently short episode. I just want to talk about a couple of things today, that being Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I haven't really given my thoughts on the end of the series and the MCU moving forward, so I'll talk about that. And then I also want to talk about just this channel as a whole and the podcast as a whole and a lot of the different plans and projects that I have moving forward and things that I kind of want to do. And just kind of my creative direction, I guess, would be the second half of this episode. It should be pretty short, but getting to Falcon and Winter Soldier, I really don't have all that much to say about this series, if I'm being honest. And that's kind of why I think with these Marvel series moving forward, and maybe series in general, I just wait till the end of the series to talk about it as a whole instead of, giving my initial, first couple of episodes reactions. I mean, the only way I should be breaking down the episodes like that is if I'm doing it every episode, which I could do in the future, maybe. But those would be more short term videos. But anyway, for these Marvel series, I think I should just kind of make it like a series, season, ending, encapsulation instead of coming up. Because watching that other video where I kind of talked about the first two episodes, I just didn't really have that much to say about this show, honestly. And, as it's completed now and I've watched the whole thing, I kind of don't really have much to say, honestly. I mean, and I think a big part of it is that this show just, nothing really changes from this show. I mean, where it ends at Endgame, this show, and where this show ends, the characters aren't in any different spot. And I mean, I guess I should get into kind of my whole breakdown of this series and whether or not I liked it. And to give you an answer, I liked ideas in this series a lot. I think that this had great potential, but the execution just got really muddled for me, especially towards the end in the final two episodes. There was they didn't know what direction they wanted to go in, and it just felt like everything was just kind of pulling. There was just strings all attached to one thing, and each string was pulling in a different direction and just almost yanking the whole story in all these different corners. And it just kind of feels mixed up and muddled, and you don't really know who to root for in this show, I guess, is the problem. There's the whole moral compass of this show gets totally muddled. And look, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with moral ambiguity as long as I know the motivation of these characters. And I think this show did a horrible job of actually showing the motivation of these characters, in my opinion. Let's just break down our two main leads, Sam and Bucky. I mean, Bucky has literally no storyline outside of the first episode and the final episode. I mean, that whole storyline, which I mentioned in my review of the first two episodes, I really loved the whole idea of Bucky going back and having to confront his past and all that. They completely drop it after the first episode and a half, and they go on the Zemo storyline and they introduce Sharon Carter and they throw all these different characters at you. And you kind of leaves you wondering, who am I supposed to root for here? And for a lot of these characters, they don't really give you a clear motivation. For example, Carly Morgenthau is supposedly the main antagonist of the series. She's this radical extremist who leads this group of, I guess you could call them terrorists. I would consider them terrorists. I mean, you blow up a building full of people, you're probably a terrorist, okay? I mean, and that's what she does. And Falcon, he doesn't want to call her that, but we'll get into that. But as for Bucky and Carly, I was talking about Carly. Carly, her character is just, you don't really understand why she's doing the things she's doing. I mean, they set up this whole thing with this GRC, which is this reparations council that I guess is a segment of, this board of senators or whatever that basically, have been displacing all the people from the snap that returned. And Carly leads this group of, renegade extremists called the Flag Smashers, and they basically, they want everything to go back to when Thanos snapped a world and half of the population was gone. And I mean, I guess that's the main motivation of Carly's character, but honestly, you don't really know why she wants this. We don't really see anything. We don't really see any of Carly's struggles. We only hear about it in conversation. I mean, most of the time, we don't really see Carly do anything for most of the show outside of show up to an abandoned GRC location and spill some expository dialogue. And, she just she commits horrible acts. And the problem is that the show tries to get you to empathize with her, but there's nothing to empathize with. I mean, they don't really do a good job of fleshing out her emotional connection to this whole situation. They don't do a very good job of making her very charismatic or likable, which, you know, a lot of these extremist characters can be, like the Joker. But this character was just void of personality. And the thing is, like, she's supposed to have the super soldier serum, but she still, like, looks like a normal girl. Like, she doesn't look buff or jacked up. Like Steve Rogers, when he got the serum, looked like he was about to burst through a wall. You know, so I don't know what's up with that. A little bit of a continuity issue there. And she happens to whip Bucky's butt like 20 different times, but whatever. But yeah, I just did not like this character at all. I think she needed a little bit more emotional ties to the story. I mean, I think like her mother or something gets blown up, but like, again, they don't really set up that relationship. They don't really make you care about this character at all, but they just expect you to. Yeah. And she was a messy character, and at least, you know, and the thing is, she doesn't even get killed off by Sam. Like, there's no real resolution there, because her and Sam's relationship is like the big part of this show. Because Sam kind of finds, you know, he kind of not necessarily agrees with her, but empathizes with her, even though she's murdered people in cold blood. And on top of the fact, like, that was the thing with Sam. Like, why does Sam empathize with her? And I guess we're going to get into Sam's character now, but why does Sam empathize with somebody that wants him gone? I mean, if you think about it, she says that she wants everybody that was brought back from the snap gone. Well, Sam was gone from the snap, so she's essentially wanting him gone, right? If I'm getting this right. And Sam is just like totally like, we should listen to her, like, and the whole message of Sam's story, which is basically like, we should listen to these extremists or else they're never going to stop committing violence. I just don't think that's a very good message. You know, overall. And the whole final speech for me fell flat just because, and look, bringing race into the show, I didn't think they were going to do it, but as soon as I saw the cop scene in episode 2, it was pretty obvious they were going to do it. And look, you know, even though I thought that scene was a little bit corny, in my opinion, you know, the whole idea of race, I think it could be an interesting thing to tackle. And I think the character of Isaiah Bradley was actually kind of well done. And a lot of his scenes with Sam, I think, were decent, but had potential to be more interesting, I think, had they taken more time with it and actually given it a couple more scenes in between. Because, you know, they explore it in the second episode, and then they explored it in the second to last episode. But like those 3 episodes, those 2 or 3 episodes in between, it's just completely forgotten about. And then we're supposed to care about it, but it's like the middle part of the story is missing. You know, it's almost like they wrote the beginning of this show and the end of this show, and then just completely forgot to fill in everything in between. You know, but Sam, like, you just, you know, and my thing with it is like, you know, they don't really flesh it out. They don't really show Sam, you know, a lot of people being racist towards Sam in this show. I mean, outside of the cops and the lone guy, which, I mean, both of those were 2 of the, you know, most senseless moments in the entire series, if I'm being honest, from a story standpoint. You know, so I wish they could have maybe shown some real, actual, concrete, you know, examples of racism towards Sam that we could have actually, you know, believed that they wouldn't accept a Captain America that's black, which, again, I think is kind of ridiculous in 2024. Remember, this takes place 3 years in the future, and this is in a universe with aliens, wizards, witches, you know, infinity stones, magic, and like, we're still caught up on having a black Captain America. I just have a hard time believing that. That's my opinion. You know, but fair. You know, it didn't bother me all that much. I just think, you know, and it bothered a lot of people, but not me. I didn't really care all that much, but I just think that it could have been something that could have been a lot deeper and a lot more emotionally resonant than what we got. But I think like I said, the Isaiah stuff I found to be really fascinating and kind of frustrating, again, why they didn't explore that more in the show and have more of a back and forth with Isaiah and Sam, because I think that could have been something interesting. But again, they kind of left it. Zemo was a character I really liked. You know, they brought him into the story. He was, you know, the cliffhanger at the end of the second episode. And I think, you know, he brought a lot of charisma but also he was a voice of reason in the show. And honestly, was one of the best written characters in this show. But again, they totally throw him out the door towards the end of the season, and he kind of becomes irrelevant. But outside of the fact that he kills the Flag Smashers, which is, you know, kind of justified. These people were murderers and, you know, extremists. I mean, let's be real. They kind of had to go. Which leads me into John Walker. Why is John Walker the most fleshed out character in this show? I was not expecting that. I didn't even know this character was going to be in the show, and he ends up being the most fleshed out character. But yet they want to present him as like this, stereotypical white guy, but it's like, that we're not supposed to like, but like you kind of empathize with him more than any of the other characters, because like he acts the most rationally out of any of these characters in the show from a writing standpoint. It's just it's confusing to me because they want you to almost root against him, but you kind of empathize with him because like he didn't, like I said when I talked about the first couple episodes, is like he didn't choose this really. They chose him, and he's now got this big responsibility. So I really like the idea for that character, but the thing with it is like I think with Sam getting the shield and all that, I wish they would have given more of a concrete reason for Sam giving up the shield, because Sam ends up getting jealous of John Walker, but it's like they don't really explain why, because he gave up the shield. And then like, did he just accept them, the government not to give it to somebody? I mean, they said we need a symbol, and Sam was like, no, it's not for me, for whatever reason. And if it's just that he's black, I just kind of wish we would have got a better, explanation of that. I mean, and we kind of do in some dialogue, but again, I wish we could have maybe saw some actual actions towards him that would discourage him from using the shield. And I wish we could have seen more conflict in the fact that him kind of juggling whether or not he wanted to keep the shield. Honestly, though, I wish if they were going to give Sam the shield, which, I'm fine with. I said they probably should have, because he was the more fleshed out of the characters between him and Bucky. I think they should have given Sam the shield, but I think they should have just had him have it and struggle with, the responsibility of it, and struggling with the fact that you have to live up to the expectations of Steve Rogers. I feel like that would have been a better angle to take than the race angle in the context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because, to be honest, the racial politics just doesn't really fit in this universe, like I mentioned. So I think if they would have went more in the direction of like him being a superhero, but not having the super soldier powers and having to use his military experience and his, gadgets and whatnot to help supplement being Captain America, could have been a cool idea if they would have fleshed that out more, in my opinion. And I think it would have allowed for more personal growth and more relatable moments in this show with Sam, because he kind of just feels, lost throughout this whole show, and you don't really understand what he wants exactly, which I guess is my problem with Carly as well. But overall, man, I was not that impressed with this show, if I'm being honest. It kind of fell apart, and I wanted to like it. I did, and I think that some of the action sequences are really good in this thing, man. And I like the whole idea of John Walker, like that whole episode with him where he smashes the shield on the guy's face, which, his friend Battlestar, which I forgot his name, Battlestar is his friend. I thought that relationship was really actually kind of well done, and when Battlestar is killed, it's pretty powerful, and you care, and you feel sorry for John Walker, which again leads to why he's one of the best fleshed out characters in this show. But like I said, the show's not called John Walker; it's called Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and they don't really go through any change. They don't really go through any growth, Falcon or Winter Soldier. They're in the exact same place they were at the end of Endgame. Bucky's recovered, and Falcon has the shield. We're right back where we started. I mean, that's why it's kind of like, and I mean, I guess you could make that argument for WandaVision, but at least she had more of a personal journey that you actually got to see, and you actually got to see, her kind of, struggle with it, even though she doesn't get consequences for her actions, which I thought was kind of stupid. I did enjoy that show more than this one, if I'm being honest. I thought that was at least a lot more experimental, a lot more out there, and I think those last 3 episodes compared to the 6 of this one, the 9 compared to the 6 episodes here, made the difference. I mean, this could have been better as a 2-hour movie, in my opinion, as opposed to a 6-hour series, just because, they almost ran out of ideas at this point. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't think this is the worst thing ever. I mean, people are saying this is complete garbage and terrible. No, I don't agree with that. I think there is redeemable qualities here. The action, like I said, is pretty damn good. And the characterization of like Zemo and John Walker are pretty interesting. But I just wish our 2 leads had more to do, in this show about Falcon and Winter Soldier. But as for Captain America 4, I hope we see more personal growth with Falcon and actually see him go through some struggles of being Captain America, not having powers. I think that's something they should really kind of dig into in these future films. more than the racial angle, in my opinion, because I just think it fits better. If this was taking place in 2021 America, sure, you could make the argument more than in a universe with, talking trees and raccoons and whatnot. So that's my opinion on it. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If I had to give it a grade, probably go like 2.7 out of 5. Yeah, close to a 3 maybe. There's definitely, I think the world is watching. That episode 4 is probably the best episode of the series. And like I said, there's good action, but again, there's just a lot of dead space in the series and a lot of characters that just don't really need to be in the story, and a lot of characters that they're forcing on you, like a lot of the villains, Sharon Carter and what's her name from Seinfeld, I forget her name, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, her character was just awful. So I mean, I'm not a big fan, and the show didn't really know who it wanted the villain to be. The Flag Smashers should have definitely had some more fleshing out, and the GRC, like, what is the point of that? I mean, I love the idea, but like, what purpose do they have in this story outside of being a setting for Carly to complain in? Yeah, wasn't really down with this series. And, it was definitely a disappointment just because Captain America, the Winter Soldier was such a good movie because it played on more of the espionage and government infiltration side of politics than the social side. I think that just works better for, these kind of political thrillers, in my opinion. But, it's an okay show. Moving on to the future of this channel, I guess, is what I don't know what to call this, but I want to rant kind of, I guess, about what I want for the podcast moving forward and kind of my plans. I did a film democracy the other day. I didn't really explain this. It was kind of an impromptu idea that Alec Holker and a friend of mine who was on the show and I had, where basically I'm going to just, in the future, like I want to just have it where I post and then people comment movies that they want, and then I'll like put a poll together on like one centralized website. Maybe it might be my own if I can do it, but probably on some social media I'll put a poll. Instagram, I think, worked the best. I think that got the most engagement. So it might end up being Instagram, but I want to put a poll up and have people choose the polls. I mean, and have people choose the films that we watch and review for the show. And we'll do like Alec did with Alec and I did with Spectre. We'll just break down scene by scene and kind of talk about, the films, and it could be one that we've seen or not. Rather be one that we've seen before, just because the preview review is kind of more for that. But for movies we haven't seen, this is more for movies that we have seen and we want to just break down completely. That's kind of what I want to do with this. And definitely, I want it to be more interactive. Of course, as more people tune into the live streams and stuff, as I start to do those. Because right now, I'm at a big crossroads for the next couple of months because this computer right here, this is the computer that I use to run the TJ Martino podcast. This is what I've used since the beginning. It's a 2015 MacBook Pro, and it's hanging on by a thread, man. This computer has been worked to death. It's been through 4 years of college and multiple hours of editing, rendering, exporting, transcoding. Yeah, this thing it's definitely coming towards the end of its life here. And this summer we're supposed to, I think in June there's been leaks that there's going to be an announcement by Apple at their event in the beginning of June for the 16-inch and 14-inch MacBook Pros with the M1X chip processor in there. For anyone that doesn't know what that means, new MacBooks are being announced in July or in June. I think that's a rumor, so we don't know. But that's usually when these things come out for tech, it's kind of hard to hide a mass production of technology in a factory. So leaks get out and they're usually pretty credible with technology products usually. And usually with Apple, they're pretty accurate, these leaks are, with when things are going to be announced and released. So who knows, but I would say it's probably a good chance that we get new Macs this summer, new MacBooks. And that's why I'm waiting. And if you watched the film Democracy with Alec the other day, I struggled pretty hard with getting the camera and the microphone to work. That was definitely a struggle because my computer just couldn't handle my mixer, my GoPro, my microphone, like and StreamYard all running at the same time. It just could not handle it. So it ended up being kind of a tough situation where I had to just use my computer mic and my headphones. And I don't like to do that because it doesn't sound good. And you know, I've made bad mistakes already with quality. So I don't want to keep doing that. And, you know, that's why probably when I get the new MacBook will be when a lot of the live streaming and stuff, I'll try to introduce that more so than I am now. Right now, I'm kind of just testing it out, kind of seeing what ideas I want to do, which is why you might be seeing like a bunch of new series just kind of pop up like Film Democracy did. And they might never return again. Like I might never do another Film Democracy again. Probably will, but, you know, what my point is that I'm going to try a bunch of stuff and some of it's going to stick and some of it's not. So just, you know, check it out if it's something you're interested in. And I'm going to be doing stuff outside of movies and in music and all that. I'm going to go beyond. And I want to do like a relationship show. I want to do a bunch of different stuff. So, yeah, definitely some stuff to come in terms of that. But it just comes down to getting a new computer. Once I get that new computer, it's going to open up a new door for me creatively because, yeah, I have all of the equipment. I need the beast. I need the engine to make it run. And right now this thing is just, it can't handle it because my stream kept freezing when I was trying to start Film Democracy. And I was like, oh, this cannot be happening to me. This is a crisis. Luckily we figured it out, but like, yeah, I can't. It's going to be hard for me to do a lot of those live streams with this kind of quality right now. But definitely by the end of the summer, I will be in good shape in terms of live streaming. So that's definitely something I want to introduce. And as for this podcast, we're going to continue to grow. I want to keep getting guests on. And I want to... yeah, I just want to, but the podcast is going to be different because it's always going to be in person. You know, I'm not going to be doing any episodes of the TJ Martino podcast over Zoom, over StreamYard, any of that. It will be a different series for those kind of discussions. But I want the TJ Martino podcast to be intimate and to be done in a room with somebody. So if I have a guest, it will be done in person for this specific show. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean I'm only going to talk to people in, you know, face to face. Obviously not. I'm going to be doing Zoom, you know, conversations and interviews and stuff like that. Not necessarily interviews. I don't really like that word. More conversations on streaming and stuff like that. For sure, I'll be doing that. So it's not like I'm not going to be doing streaming and you know, online conversation, but there's a certain level of energy that you get from an in-person conversation that you can't get from a Zoom conversation where, you know, you're a few seconds behind somebody, you know, and have you ever had a Zoom conversation where you interrupt with somebody and then you kind of both stop and you're like, okay, who should talk? Like that happens way too often on Zoom and video chats, and you don't get that in person because you can kind of get the nonverbal cues easier. So I don't know, those kind of things. And I don't know, I like the real life IRL feel, I guess, of this podcast, even though it's pre-recorded. I don't know. So that's just the way I want to do it. So yeah, all the TJ Martino podcast episodes will be done in person, but everything else will probably be done over stream. Some of it might be done in person. I don't know. If I can do it in person, I'll do it in person. But, you know, logistics aren't always on your side. So you got to do what you got to do. But yeah, thanks for everybody listening, checking this stuff out, following me, all that. I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff moving forward, so be on the lookout. And yeah, check out the website, tjmartino.com, TJ Martino Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, Minds, all of those platforms. And if there's any more video platforms that are free to upload on, let me know, because I want to join them. I want to join all the platforms. You know, so yeah, check me out on all those. And yeah, check out the Instagram page, Facebook page, blah, blah, blah. You know the deal. tjmartino.com. Thanks. I'll see you guys next time, and let the beat drop.